Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Black Real Estate Dialogue podcast. Very excited about this episode. Here with me, I have Eric Bowie, aka Smart Money Bro, out of Kansas City, Missouri. Eric, thank you so much for joining the show. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
For sure. So first, I would just love to hear more about what it was like for you growing up, what your childhood was like, and what you saw, or maybe what you didn't see, that shaped your view of what it means to build wealth.
Good question. Well, I grew up here in Kansas City, Kansas, right here in the heartland, right in the middle of the country. Grew up youngest of 5 children. One of the things that I did growing up was we moved a lot. So we were always in different places. My mother, she was married to my dad till I was about 10 years old. And then they separated, and neither one of them graduated high school. So I come from real humble beginnings. Grew up the way a lot of us grew up. You know, there was some poverty, and there was some, lights being on in this person's name, and there was some lights being cut off sometime. But for the most part, the one thing that happened to me was we may have grew up sort of poor, but poverty was never something that was deeply ingrained into us. So that's one of the key takeaways from when I grew up as a young person. Sure, we didn't have a whole lot. My mother was an LPN, and she didn't go back to school to become an RN till she was in her 40s. So ultimately, when the kids all grew up, she kind of went back to get her community college associate's degree and became an RN. And so, that's how I grew up. Kind of some rough neighborhoods, some bad neighborhoods. But again, that poverty mindset was never embedded inside of me. And so it always gave me an opportunity for hope and that something could be different. So I lived in a lot of places. Relating this to real estate, sort of, I lived in a lot of different places growing up. I could probably name 18 different places I lived by the time I was 30 years old. Matter of fact, before I was 30 years old, I never even owned a house. I lived in apartments all of my life or rental houses growing up. Even when I went off to college, didn't have a great high school academic time. CD student, there was just a lot of expectations in terms of where I went to school. And so I decided, hey, should I go to college? Should I not go to college? I don't have super good grades, but I know I'm smart. That was the other thing that was instilled upon me. The fact that my success is tied to my work ethic. It wasn't tied to, oh, you're smart. Oh, you're not very smart. It was always tied to if you put your mind to it, you can do it. Therefore I tied that into my effort in terms of success. So my success was not based on somebody pointing the finger and saying you're smart or you're dumb. My success was always focused on my effort. I always knew that if I tried harder, I could be successful. And that's really important. And I'll tell you why in just a bit. But, so that's kind of where I went. I got out of high school. Went to community college part-time, wasn't quite sure, but I did have an older sister that was a teacher. And as a teacher, I said, that might be something that I can do. Maybe I can teach. Although I got poor grades, I still knew that I knew from a very early age that I was bright. You always hear, oh, he's pretty bright, right? Didn't have the grades, didn't have the work ethic, but I knew I was bright. So because I was told I was bright, I knew, that's another thing that I knew, hey, if I just tie that into my work ethic, hey, I could be anything I want to be. So I went to college part-time at community college, and then about 19 or 20 years, and here's the deal. My first full year in community college, I was a 1.75 GPA. Again, just not trying very hard and all that good stuff. 1.75 GPA on academic probation. And that's when the light clicked. I was about 20 years old. And I said, you know what? I'm going to be a teacher. I'm going to be a school teacher. And so From that point on, for 3 straight semesters, um, they told me in order to transfer to K-State or KU or Wichita State, an in-state school here in Kansas, they said that you had to be a 2.5 student or a 2.75 to get into the School of Education, wherever you wanted to go as a junior after you finish your community college. So from then on, what I did was, from the time I was 20 and I made that decision to go ahead and be a teacher, I got straight A's for 3 straight semesters in college, at the community college, because I wanted to get that 2.5 to get into a 4-year school in the School of Education. So I said, I just hit it. Something told me, I always knew again that I was smart, that I was bright. It was just a matter of my work ethic. If I work hard at it, I could do it. I could be anything. So I turned it around academically. I had a 2.55 when I got out of community college, and that was too low to get into KU. You had to have a 2.75 to get in KU, but it was right on time to get into K-State. So you had to have a 2.5 to get into K-State. So I got a 2.55. I transferred to K-State as a junior. The rest is history. Then I became a teacher. I was a school teacher from 1994 to 1999. I was a school teacher. So I did that. So the kind of the turnaround point from when I was young was, I always knew I was bright. I just had to put my mind to it. I just had to put the work ethic in and do what I had to do. So that's what I did. And that's kind of my story leading up. In terms of real estate, how I tie that in is, like I said, I never lived in a house. I never bought a house till I was 30, almost 30 years old. I bought a house for the first time. And so I lived in a lot of different places as a tenant. So when I first bought my first house, I knew how to be a tenant. So I knew how to relate to tenants. And that helped me learn how to screen tenants, how to get a feel for what I'm looking at in terms of tenants. So that's kind of my story growing up, man. I was a teacher for several years, coached a lot of basketball. And then in 2002, I transitioned into the federal government space, where I work now on a full-time basis. So I hope that answers your question, man. I grew up like all of us did.
Yeah, no, that was great. That was great. Thank you for diving in. And I think there are a couple of things I want to pull out of that portion. So the one thing is that you mentioned that really resonated is that, in spite of the environment, in spite of, what you grew up around and the situation financially, you always had hope. You knew that,
that's right.
I'm here now, I'm in this situation, but it doesn't define me. It doesn't define what I can do in the future. And like you said, you knew that the outcome for your life was heavily tied to your efforts. So I think, I think that's powerful. I think that's very powerful because, like you said, a lot of people can relate to things you shared in your background, but it doesn't have to mean that that's it for you. Just because you are in a position for a period of time, it doesn't mean it's permanent.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, a lot of it is really it's about how you think. Okay, a lot of things is you're going to be able to achieve in your life or not achieve is going to be in your mind. So I always knew from a young age that I was going to be successful, married, have children, have a nice house. Like in the back of my mind, through my teens and 20s, somewhere in the recesses of my mind, I knew that. It was sort of like a subliminal vision. You have a vision of where your life is going to go. And it's really all about what you're thinking, how your thoughts are. Your thoughts are going to determine your destiny and where you go. And I always knew I could go somewhere big. I mean, of course, there's grace. You got to, God was always watching over me. But at the same time, I had the right thought process about me. I always say that when you want to make a child successful, never look at them and say you're smart or you're dumb, because then they tie their success to something that's innate and they can't change, right? You can't change if you're smart. You can't change if you're considered dumb. But if you tie their success to how hard they work, how focused they are, then all of a sudden, those are things that you can control. So if you tie your successes or child's failures or successes to things they can control, then you give them the opportunity to have hope and to have to build self-confidence but if you tie it to them, so I'm very cautious about that. I always say, if you work hard, you can do anything. And so it's all about your effort, and it's more motivation for you to do. And what you can change is what you can actually change. And if you can't change it, then you're stuck, and all of a sudden your confidence goes down and your self-esteem goes down, etc. So that was big for me when I was growing up, because I have a family. I have some siblings that are doing well. I have some siblings that aren't doing well. So it's biology. You can have the same parents and have two different outcomes. But if your mind is in a certain place, you can project yourself to success.
Absolutely, absolutely. And something else you mentioned is you didn't purchase your first home till you were almost 30 years old. And I think that is something that's very significant as well, because a lot of times some people feel like if I don't do X by a certain age, I can't do it, And you mentioned also like you lived in about 18 different places, and you knew, and what you took from that was you knew how to be a tenant, and it also helped you when you got to that point to rent to others. You got a feel for what you wanted. So I think it's interesting how all of that ties in together.
That's right. It's very important, man. But with that piece, it's like you don't, everything won't happen in a microwave. Everything will happen quick, fast. I see a lot of young people right now looking at real estate and everything, money, Bitcoin, whatever it may be, and they want that magic. They want that boom right now. Oh, I want to invest in a company, and I want that company stock to go through the roof right now. And it's like, the best friend of money is time. And people don't really realize the time aspect of money, because they want it quick. They want everything fast. But it takes time, man. Sometimes you gotta put in your dues, and everything has a season. And don't rush it. It'll take some time, but you got to put in the work. And a lot of times nowadays, man, a lot of people don't want to put in the work, but it takes some time.
For sure, for sure. So talk to us about that first property, just what that process was like, and yeah, tell us more about that. What that experience was like.
Yeah, that was interesting. Back about 1999, I kind of got into listening to some real estate guys. You probably haven't heard of Carlton Sheets. He was the no money down guy back in the late 90s, and he'd be doing these infomercials from his boat, and come on TV and talk about how he's closed hundreds of different transactions, and now all of a sudden he owns a bunch of real estate. He sits back on his boat. So I kind of got into that no money down real estate. I was started looking for ways when I was about in my late 20s to figure out, what can I do long term to have some passive income. So I looked into real estate. My very first transaction, I was looking around Kansas City, Missouri for some property to own. I said, hey, let me see what I can do. I don't have any money, but I've got some aspirations. And I ran into a real estate agent, and he happened to have a couple of homes himself. And so he said, hey, you know what, I'll sell you this home that I have, and I'll sell or finance it for you. So he owned it, I believe, free and clear. And it was a small 2-bedroom, 1-bath, and it had a squatter in there. So if you know what a squatter is, it's just somebody hanging out, living in an empty house with no utilities, and they're just living there. But he said, you know what, I'll sell you the house, but you obviously got to get the squatter out of there and do all that, all that leg work to get him out of there. So I said, I'm excited. I'm young. I'm eager. I say, okay, let's do it. Let's do it. Let's go ahead and do this transaction, and I'll go ahead and work on getting the squatter out of there. Of course, when you walk up to a house and there's a squatter in there, and the squatter don't know you, you don't know what the squatter has. If he's angry or she's angry or whatever, there's on drugs or whatever. But it was in a tough neighborhood too. So I went ahead and took it. I purchased the home from him, gave him a little bit of money down, maybe $500, $750 down. And lo and behold, he signed it over to me. I think I had to pay him like $150. I think he charged me $20,000 for the property.
Mm-hmm.
The property was an old ran down property, but I was like, man, let's just do it. So it took me like 2 months to get the squatter out of there. And so I finally got the squatter out after talking to the squatter, trying to negotiate with the squatter. I didn't call the authorities. I just worked it out with the squatter myself. Said,
Wow.
hey, I bought this property. Can you go ahead and, head out, and boom, boom. Okay, I'll give you a week. Get all your stuff. Get out of here. I was trying to be nice to him. So squatter left. Next thing you know, I bought the property, and I think I started working on the property. I remember going to a bank and walking into the bank with a portfolio of stuff about what I want to do with the property, and asking the bank, can you refinance me? Because I wanted to be refinanced to get out of his deal so I can have a little money to fix it up. So I wanted them to refinance me so I could pay him his $20,000, and at the same time spend $5,000 or $10,000 maybe fixing the property up.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted a $30,000 loan on the property. And so if you know about banks and loans, they don't like loaning money on $30,000 properties. That's just too low. But ultimately I walked into the bank and presented them with this plan of action I had, and they agreed to it. And they said, okay, we'll loan you 30,000 and we'll go ahead. And so I took that 30,000, I paid him 20, I took 10, and I did some refurbishing with the 10. So that 10,000, I can remember, okay, the first maintenance guy I got to help me out, he ended up stealing like $500 worth of stuff from me. I think he was
Really?
on drugs. I didn't know he was on drugs. We went out to Home Depot, bought a bunch of stuff, some doors and all this stuff. Next thing you know, he went away with I never seen him again. So,
Wow.
the kicker is this, man. You learn so much along the
Mm-hmm.
way. And what some people that get into real estate do is they study too long.
Yep.
Because most of your learning is going to take place when you buy properties or when you scout properties or whatever you may be doing. That's where the learning takes place. It don't take place in the $4,000 seminar that somebody has over the weekend.
Yep.
Okay, so I always tell young people, stay out of those seminars and start getting out there and doing some work. Because those seminars, that $3,000 you spend on the seminar is $3,000 you could have put towards flooring or towards windows or towards, you get what I'm saying?
Yep.
So stay out of the guru. Everything you learn in the seminar can be learned online today for free. You can get you a $5 book and it'll teach you as much as you need to know. And then you got to get out there and start working. Then you got to get out there and start buying properties, putting your name in the hat, getting to know mortgage companies, getting to know real estate agents, etc. So you got to work it. You can't just study it. Study long, study wrong. So that's kind of how the first deal went. I can remember right now, like it was yesterday, sitting in the middle of a demolished kitchen,
Mm-hmm.
thinking to myself, what in the world did I get myself into? I had tore all the cabinets out, tore the kitchen sink out, laying in a whole big old pile of rubbish. I didn't have enough money to pay real contractors, but so I had to rely on my intuition to get a guy a handyman that would help me. And the first one I got, he ended up stealing my stuff. And then I ran into another one on that very first house of mine, and that guy's still with me today. He still does work with me 20 years later.
Wow.
He doesn't do everything I need, but he does a few little handyman things. But he's the one that helped me put that kitchen back together that I had demolished and kind of get that first house going. So that was my story with my first house, man. I kept it for about 10, 12 years, and then I had to get rid of it. But it was just an old rundown house that I wanted to get my feet wet.
Definitely.
So the lesson for your guys, the lessons for you all listening to this is get out there and you learn by doing when it comes to real estate. Okay. You don't learn you can get a little information from reading, from watching podcasts, but you got to get out there and you got to do the work, because that's where your lessons are going to come into. I would have never ran into that first guy that stole my stuff if I had, been reading and I may have never run into that lesson that he taught me about how to vet a handyman, how to make sure how to talk to, all those things came from actually doing. So that's a big kicker, big takeaway.
Definitely. Definitely. I agree. And that's amazing. I like a couple things about this first story. Like you just, like you said, you just went out and you did it. You know, you followed your intuition. You had enough information to make the first step, and then each step it just got better. And even, you know, also the transparency. Like, there was a period of time you're sitting like, man, what did I get myself into? But like as you mentioned, you figured it out and you ended up owning this piece of property for a decade plus, you know? And so can you imagine like what would have happened, or maybe what life would have been like if you, after the handyman stole the stuff, or after that moment when you were just sitting in the kitchen, like, what am I doing? Your whole life may have been different if you just gave up at that point and just said, you know what, let me just sell this off to somebody and get rid of this headache, you know?
Yep, absolutely. That's the kicker, man. You got to be persistent. You got to find ways. Sometimes you got to learn to fly the plane while it's in midair. You know, you got to figure it out. And the learning comes in the figuring it out. Okay, so the learning doesn't, you know, you got to get in there and you got to. I was sitting in the middle of that pile of that rubble in that kitchen that I had demolished, and I didn't know the first thing about it. I'm gonna tell you one thing I did though after that first house. One thing I did that helped me was I decided that, you know, I want to learn a little bit about about houses, period. So what I did is I agreed to follow a guy around for a few months without pay. And he was a general contractor and he worked for himself. And I decided that, you know what, I don't have money to go get into a class or nothing like that, but I do have some time to help somebody. And in that helping, I can learn. And so for no charge, free of charge, I went with this guy for about 2 or 3 months, and we went on different jobs, and I helped him. I helped him put up ceiling. I helped him put in drywall. I helped him put up lights. I helped him plumb a few things. And so I learned a little bit about what was behind the walls of these rental houses, how to look at a roof, how to determine whether or not your downspouts and your gutters are properly connected and you got the proper grading leading away from the house. You name it. Do you have proper insulation? You know, what is a load bearing wall and what is not a load bearing wall? So I said, you know what, I need to learn these things if I'm gonna be doing these rental houses, and I may not get compensated, but in money, but I'll get compensated in knowledge. And so that's another takeaway, man. That's something I did right after that first house when I was so frustrated. I said, look, if I'm gonna be out here bidding these projects or at least having handymen come in there, I don't want them coming into my properties and telling me what stuff about the property that I don't know. And they could be telling me anything. Yep. I need to learn this stuff. So I spent two months out there learning it and just going with him, asking tons and tons of questions, you know, using a fulcrum. I don't know if you know what a fulcrum is, but a fulcrum is just a shape, a triangle that you use that till you push up your drywall and your ceilings. So those are things that I didn't know, but I learned them because I wanted to learn them in order to be better at renting houses, right? Buying houses, doing my due diligence on houses in terms of what am I looking for. So that's another takeaway for your audience is that sometimes it's okay to go to work for no compensation because no money, no monetary compensation, because the compensation is in the education that you're getting. So just keep that in mind, man. That's something I did and it helped me out. Nowadays, if I go up to a rental property right now, I can look at that thing and I can almost inspect it on my own without any type of professional because I know what I'm looking at. And that's something that I had to learn not only over the years, but I started that education off for free without paying me a dime because I was going to get paid in the long run for just being educated about that information.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And at that time, you know, once the rehab and all that stuff was done, what was it like for you just being so new, finding someone to live there? What was that process like from what you can recall?
Yeah, that's another whole learning process. I always tell people that the very most important thing you can do with a rental house or rental income, I'm talking residential, not necessarily commercial, but residential. The most important thing you can do is find the right tenant. Okay. Everything else doesn't matter as long as you find the right tenant. That's the first and foremost, most important thing. So over the years, that's what I've tried to perfect, is being able to find the right tenant. It's hard sometimes,
Mhm.
but it don't matter what type of flooring you put in there. It don't matter what type of lighting, how pretty the countertops are. None of that means anything if you put in the wrong tenant. So in the very beginning, man, when I didn't really have a system down. Um, that was back in the days of lots of paper and paper applications and stuff. And sometimes I would say, ask my wife to be there with me to help me kind of get a feel for people. Because, sometimes men and women, their intuitions about people and just different people in general. Sometimes I would have my kids come through with me when I went to meet somebody to look at the property. I would get my kids' take. What do they feel about the person? What type of vibe do they get? They see something I didn't see. Um, Sometimes it takes more than just your eyes and just what you see on paper. Sometimes it's a feel you get for people when you meet them in person. So I learned all that early. It was tough for me in the beginning because I didn't know what to look for. I had to kind of learn what type of parameters. You got to be thick-skinned as a landlord when it comes to people, because when people want to rent your property out, the first thing they do, they put on the best face, the
Yep.
biggest smile. They shake your hand. They shake your hand firmer than they ever shook anybody's hand in their life, because they want a place to live.
Yep.
Now you got to have thick skin, because sometimes they're going to give you a sad story. They're going to tell you, I'm homeless. I don't have any place to go. They're going to tell you, my kid, we don't have any clothes. We're living in a hotel around the corner. We're looking for a property. So you got to have thick skin, and you got to develop a process that you are determined to stick to in order to rent properties out. And I kind of had to develop that early, man. But I've had some pretty good tenants over the years, and I've had some incredibly bad tenants over the years.
Yeah.
So it just depends. But those first experiences were interesting. They were always learning experiences, and they kind of helped shape me into being the landlord that I've been, ever since.
Sure, for sure. So I guess real estate wise, where did things go from you? I guess where have things gone since that period of time? Because you started in the game some years ago, which I think is great, and I mean you're already dropping gems. So I would love to hear like about the rest of the journey.
Fantastic. So after I first bought that first property about 2000, 2001, I bought probably 5 more properties, single family residences, over the course of the following 4 or 5 years. And I've never loaded up and had a ton of properties, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I've actually gotten rid of properties because I've scaled down real estate wise.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, after I bought that first 2-bedroom, 1-bath, I bought another 2-bedroom, 1-bath. And that 2-bedroom, 1-bath was right around the corner from the other, not too far. I used to go out scouting neighborhoods. And so what I used to do is go out and I'd check out a neighborhood, be able to see, okay, that property looks like it hasn't been well kept by the owner. Let me go back to my sources back online. Let me see who owns the property. Let me make a few phone calls. So I did that whole thing for a while as well. Bought a couple of properties. I didn't buy any other properties that were owner financed. Okay, the rest of them I got were not necessarily owner financed. But I bought another 2-bedroom, 1-bath, and then I bought okay, so also in 2005, I took the property that I purchased. Okay, so right after I made my very first purchase, around the same time actually, me and my wife got married, and we bought my wife's mom's house from her on what was used to be called an assumption loan. I'm not sure if you're familiar with those.
No.
But assumption loans, they kind of phased them out. What they do is they say, if it's under an assumption loan, you can come in, anybody can purchase this house and assume the loan that's already on the property without being vetted, without having their credit ran or anything like that. So we bought it on a assumption loan. And so we bought that about 2000 also. So now all of a sudden I had a rental property, and I had my very first primary residence at the age of 30. So I had 2 properties. And so by the time 2005 came around, I had 3 or 4 other properties. And then I moved into another house, and I rented out my primary resident as well, the one that I had assumed. So I had roughly about 5 rental houses, 6 rental houses by the time of 2005, 2006. So 6 years later, I had 5 more properties, 6 total.
Wow.
And so I left the 2-bedroom, 1-bath. I had 2 of those, and then I purchased some 3-bedroom, 1-bath houses as well, because I began to read about the fact that, hey, 2-bedroom, 1-bath versus 3-bedroom, 2-bath, or 3-bedroom houses are a lot different. They're a lot more marketable. You can sell them easier. You can rent them easier. So I bought a few 3-bedrooms also. So I ended up at about 6 properties, and I kept them until, of course, 2007, 2008, 2009 hit. And I ended up getting rid of, it impacted me.
Mm-hmm.
Here's some of the mistakes I made. I'll give you a mistake I made that would help out your listeners. When I bought property, I believe I was over leveraged in the property. In other words, I bought property with too little money down. And what happened in 2000, so in other words, I would be bringing home, out of 6 properties, I might be bringing home close to $5,000 a month, right, in rents. Probably $4,500 to $5,000 a month in rents. But because I only put a little bit down and I financed all of them, I had $3,000 going out. So I had $3,000 going out, and I had $4,500 to $5,000 coming in. That sounds like a pretty nice cushion, right? $1,500 to $2,000. Here's where the problem comes in. If there is a major repair and you don't have cash, you're in trouble. If you have 2 or 3 tenants that don't pay rent for that month, you're in trouble, because you're paying so much in mortgages that you're only getting a $1,500 cushion. Let's say 2 of your big houses you don't get rents. Now you're in the hole. And so now you got to figure out how to pay that. So one of the things I always caution people about is put some money down on your properties. Don't come to the properties only putting $1,000 down on a $100,000 house or $5,000. Put as much as you can so that there's a little leverage there. I mean, that there's a little cushion there. And also have some cash on the side. One of the things I didn't do is I didn't keep a stash of cash for each property in case something goes wrong. I always recommend, if you have a house under $100,000, you need to have $5,000 in cash in case something goes wrong automatically.
Yeah.
So that means that if the furnace goes out, if the compressor to the AC goes out, if the roof, something happens and the roof collapse or whatever, of course you have your insurance, but I'm just saying you have emergency money for emergency repairs. But sometimes those emergency repairs aren't just repairs. Sometimes it's, I got to pay the mortgage because my tenant is not paying the mortgage and I got to kick them out. So the problem one of the mistakes I had is I did not have enough cash on hand to cover emergencies and problems.
Got it.
And so that's another thing that's a takeaway. Don't buy a bunch of property and not have no cash on hand to fix things if things go wrong. And that's what happened to me. And so ultimately I ended up having to let go of several of my properties around 2011 or so, because I was just over leveraged. I had 3 or 4 bad tenants in a row. And because of that, it put me in a bad spot. So ultimately I decided to let 4 of my properties go, and I kept 2. And since 2012, I've only had 2013, I've only had 2 properties. And because what I did with my real estate is I made it a piece of my portfolio and not my whole portfolio in terms of my money and income and personal finances. It became a piece of the portfolio and not the mainstay.
Got it.
That's kind of some of my story there, man. I learned so much along the way.
Definitely. I appreciate how you've kind of embedded the lessons you've learned as well. And, I appreciate the transparency too, because the reality of it is, like, it's not a perfect science, right? Things will happen. You'll learn along the way, as you mentioned, and, you're still standing, right? You realize, oh, wow, I'm over leveraged. I got to let some of these go, but you're still standing. And you realize you realized that you wanted to make real estate a piece of the whole picture. You know, the world didn't end after that. You know, you kept going.
That's right. That's right. That's right. So that's very important. One of the things I tell people is that I would rather have, and this is kind of what I tell people, is that I would rather have, 5 paid for properties than 20 properties with mortgages on them, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you have 20 properties with a mortgage on them, and you're making $200 each on each property, you're making $4,000 a month, right? But if you have 5 properties, and you're paying rents of $800 a month, then you're also making $4,000, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the difference is, with 5 properties, you have 15 less headaches, right?
Yeah.
So it sounds good and fun to have a big old portfolio with 20 properties in it. But if your big old portfolio with 20 properties is not making you any more than having 5 paid for properties, why not have the 5 paid for so you don't have all the 15 extra headaches? So that's kind of what I kind of preach to people is, think about paying your properties off, or even think about doing one at a time over the course of 3 or 4 years. And guess what? If you buy one cash for $10,000, $15,000, and you, over the course of 2 or 3 years, you fix it up as you go along, and you just relax and take your time. Well, guess what? In 15 years, you'll have 5 or 6 paid for properties. And if you're 25 years old, and in 15 years, you got 5 paid for properties by the time you're 40 years old, well, guess what? You're chilling, right? You're chilling. You don't have to, push it and like you said, you just take your time and understand that the time value of money, and it looks good and it sounds good and it feels good to own 20 properties. But if you're only making $200 a piece on each one, is that the right way to go? So there's something to think about when you're looking at how you want to structure your portfolio over the course of years and years when you're talking about property. Now, I'm a buy and hold guy. I have done a couple of flips, but I'm a buy and hold guy for the most part. I'm not a wholesaler, and I don't typically do a lot of flips. So when I got into real estate, I got in it for the long run.
Mm-hmm.
I knew that it would be a minute, it'd be a while. When you buy and hold, you're just collecting money over the course of the years. So now I'm at the point where, my properties that I have, my 2 that I kept, they're not quite paid for, but they're just about paid off. But so that's kind of how I talk to, new people that want to get involved. Hey, man, I want to get involved in real estate. What's the first thing I should do? I always tell them, make sure your cash is together. Make sure you got a strong, thick skin, because you're gonna need it. And what do you want to do? The first thing I ask people is, what is your goals in real estate? Do you want to flip them? Do you want to wholesale them? Do you want to buy commercial? Do you want to buy residential? Are you interested in apartments? Apartments are going to be a little more labor intensive. It's going to take more of your time. Or you want to do single families? You want to do duplexes and live in one side? So you got to figure out, when you first get into real estate, what is your goal? What do you want to do? What do you want to be? Where do you want to be in 5 or 10 years? And then after that, and I'm probably moving ahead in terms of your questions,
but you're good.
I'm just trying to tell you the types of things that I always tell people to think about if you want to get into real estate. Don't, understand your goals first. What do you want? And they may change along the way, but what you want is going to make a difference on how you enter into the game. Okay. Yep. So if you want to do wholesaling, then there's certain things you got to figure out. If you're going to do wholesaling, you got to develop an investor list. You got to have a list of guys that are ready to buy from you immediately. If you're going to wholesale, you got to learn how to scout neighborhoods when you're wholesaling, right? Mm-hmm. So there's depending on what your goal is how you should enter into the game. If you want to buy apartment houses, then there's a lot of apartment listings. I always suggest getting with a real estate agent who specializes in apartments. Making sure you have your credit in a certain way, because you're probably not going to buy an apartment cash. Understanding how much time you have to dedicate towards apartments. There's just so much, man, in terms of to learn, depending on how you want to get into it. But so that's just kind of some things I give people to think about.
Appreciate that. Appreciate that. And this is a really cool episode because in part because you've been in this for a very long time, and also it is our first guest from Kansas City. And so, could you share with the listeners, how the Kansas City market has changed in the last 20 years, and also what it's like now, for folks who maybe they're interested in investing in the Midwest and they're looking for different markets.
Yeah, Kansas City real estate is it's one of those real estate markets that doesn't see the incredible highs and the incredible lows that you might get on the coast. When you go out to Connecticut or New York or New Jersey, you're going to get some big fluctuations. You go up to Seattle and California, things are ballooning out of proportion, and then they'll shrink. So we don't have that real volatility that some other markets have, and that makes this market attractive to a lot of outside buyers, because it's a little more stable. It doesn't move with the speed that some of the other markets move in. But in terms of single family, man, we've seen, I mean, right now, as you know, right now we're in the end of 2020. It's real hot right here in Kansas City. In terms of being a market where your prices they're going up and up and up and up. But I know other markets down south, in the East Coast and West Coast may not be doing that. They may have already hit their peaks. But so this market is attractive to buyers. It really is, especially talking about single family homes and even apartment homes, just because it doesn't move like some of the others. And it moves a little more slowly. But right now, it's really doing well, man. And so there's opportunities. This is what I say about real estate. People try to time the real estate market all the time, right?
Yep.
They try to say, "Oh man, things are hot. Let me sell my property." Oh, things are, But my thing is with real estate is that there's all you need is one good deal. There's always a good deal out there, no matter what the overall market is doing. You just need to be ready. Have your cash, or if it's credit, have your credit, and make sure that you're ready for what you're looking for, and you can always find it. You can go to the sale on the courthouse steps in any major city, and you can get great deals regardless if the market is hot or if the market is cold.
Right.
All you need is a motivated seller. And once you get a motivated seller, and there's motivated sellers all around you. So that's the kicker. So be careful about playing the market. You can play the market a little bit, nothing wrong with that. But just be cognizant that you can always get a good deal when it comes to real estate.
For sure. And I know, you do real estate, but you do a whole lot of other things. So I want to make sure we have some time for that. I always like to talk about other ventures that guests have going on. So let's start with Smart Money Bro. Can you tell us more about the vision behind that and everything you have going on with that?
Yeah, Smart Money Bro is really a blog that I created a few years ago to write about the topics of money, because I've been fortunate. You heard my story where I didn't come from a whole lot, but I made a couple of really, really smart moves in my 20s. One of the smart moves I made was I was a teacher, and when I stopped teaching at the age of 30 or 31, I took whatever monies was in my Missouri retirement teacher fund, because when you're a teacher, automatically a certain percentage of your money gets put away for your retirement fund, no matter what city you're in. So I took that money and I transferred it right over to the government TSP. The government's TSP, Thrift Savings Plan, is just like a 401k or a 403b, but it's for government employees. And so I took that and I rolled it right over there, and I just kept on investing. When I was 24 years old as a teacher, I had an insurance guy sit me down and explain compound interest to me for the first time. That blew my mind. When you look at the tables of what your money can grow to and what compound interest can do over the course of years, it was eye-opening to me. So ever since I was 24 years old, I've been putting money towards a retirement plan. And so that's been a lot of years. And so that's been a lot of compound interest. So that's just a really smart move I made at a very young age. And so on my blog, I talk about some of those types of moves that I made at a very young age to put me in a good position now. And so that's what I do with the blog. I talk about all types of things, how I buy cars cash. I don't have car payments. how I've worked on debt and stayed away from debt. I haven't taken on any new debt in probably, I don't know, 8, 9, 10 years, whatever it may be. No new debt. I don't use credit cards. So I haven't used credit cards in years and years. So these are the types of things that I talk about on the blog. And these are just simple, simple moves that anybody can do to put yourself in a position to be successful with money. Because a lot of us, man, the way we learn about money is we learn a lot of poor money habits. And I'm saying I developed Smart Money Bro because I wanted to be able to reach out and tell people some of the good things I did with money and how you can do them too. So what I do on Smart Money Bro is I write a blog. I also do some one-on-one coaching where I kind of walk people through 4 steps to maximizing their money. You know, looking at their mindset about money. How do you think about money? Because how you think and how you think ultimately determines how you behave, right? So if you think poorly about money, you're going to behave poorly with money. But if you think about money as a tool and a resource, and you understand time and money, and you understand that, then you're going to make certain decisions in terms of how you behave with money. So we look at your money mindset. We look at what you currently have with your money. We call that money, kind of money mainstay or money mainstay. So it's it's mind frame or mindset.
Mm-hmm.
It's your mindset with money. It's your mainstay with money. Like what in terms of mainstay, I'm talking about what do you currently have? What do you currently make?
Yeah.
Maybe you make $20,000. Maybe you make $40,000. If you make $75,000, what can we do to maximize what you currently make, right? Are you putting in 5%? Are you getting your company match if you're working for a job right now?
Mm-hmm.
You know, are you putting towards a Roth IRA? So we look at maximizing what you currently make.
Mm-hmm.
And then we talk about money management. Okay, so that's the big piece. How are you managing what you have? Because most people don't really have a money problem. Most people really have a management problem. And if they understand the management of what they currently have, they're going to be better off. People can't manage what they have properly. And so they end up thinking they have a money problem. But the money is just a symptom of the bigger problem, which is the fact that you don't have any discipline around how you're managing your money. So my thing is, let's focus on your mindset. Let's focus on what you currently make. And then let's focus on managing your money properly. What does your budget look like? Are you bringing home $4,000 but spending $4,500 every month? Are you, what does your debt look like? Do you have any debt that you could get rid of and maybe free up some cash to invest or to put towards real estate, or to double your payments on your current real estate, to pay it off quicker? And then finally, we look at some money multipliers on Smart Money Bro when I do my one-on-one coaching. How can you take what you love to do? What is your purpose in life? How can we take that and you make money from it? All right. Maybe you've been something as simple as you worked in a restaurant for 10 years. Well, if you work in a restaurant for 10 years and you ran the register and you did a little cooking and you did a little waiting tables, and you maybe have done a little bit with inventory, buying some stuff, you might know the restaurant business. That might be something you love to do. You have enough skills right there to maybe start your own restaurant or to do something innovative around meals, maybe Meals on Wheels. You could deliver, you see what I'm saying?
Yep.
So we look at creative ways to take your skills and your purpose into increasing your income. So I do all that with my one-on-one coaching from Smart Money Bro, but I also have my books on there. I've written a couple of books, one about landlording, and I wrote a book about how to buy used cars cash. I can tell you about that book and why it came about.
Yeah.
I also have my eBay business on there as well. So it's my site where I do a lot of different things, but I focus on the blog and I focus on the one-on-one coaching on that site.
Sure. Very cool. Very cool. Tell us more about the books.
Wrote a book about landlording, 51 strategies, proven strategies. It's on Amazon. You can look it up under Smart Money Bro, Eric Bowie on Amazon. The second book came about how to buy good used cars cash. I bought that book. I wrote that book because about 2 years ago, my niece asked me to help her find a car. My niece and her husband asked me to help find them a car. And I said, well, let me pull up some websites you can look at so you can figure out what to look for. And there wasn't a whole lot out there, right? And so I said, you know what? Let me just start writing this book real quick about it, because I bought a lot of used cars and I know what to look for in a used car. I know what to look for when I open the hood, to go under the hood. Okay, that doesn't look right. Okay, what's that noise? I can put it on a lift and figure out what an aftermarket part is, if the transmission's been changed or not changed out. I can do a lot with cars. By the way, I worked at Jiffy Lube for 2 years back when I was 19, 20 years old.
Nice.
So I had a lot of different jobs over the years, man. And one of them was Jiffy Lube, and I loved it. But so there was nothing out there telling people how to buy a used car. So I said, let me put together these tips. It's got like 60 something tips in there about what to look for. I mean, this book is solid, man. It's like 75 pages. It's exactly what to look for when you pop that trunk to figure out if it's been painted, but the person selling it didn't tell you it was painted. It's about, what to look for in terms of on the inside of the car to help you figure out, what's something done? What's been modified on the car? What questions to ask when you come up to a seller who's selling their car. You might find them on Facebook Marketplace or Craigslist, whatever. What are you going to ask them to figure out if this is something you want to get? How to negotiate. Because if you're going to buy a car cash, you need to know how to negotiate. So all that stuff is in that book, man. It's jam-packed, 70 pages, man. It's on Amazon as well. But and it's offered on it's on my website as well. But it's a fun little book because you're not going to find many books out there about how to buy a used car cash. And guess what? Most of us are buying used cars cash and we don't even know what to look for.
Right.
So
that's amazing. There's one thing that I'm picking up here. So you what I appreciate about you is that, you run into obstacles, you run into difficulties, and you use it to help make you better and help make others better. Because when you think about the blog, when you think about the books, it's all through like life lessons you've learned, things you've picked up and that have helped you. And now in turn, they're helping other people because you're kind of documenting your experience and you're putting it out there on the market. You're putting it out there for the world to receive. And, you receive compensation in return for helping people make more money, helping people know how to manage their money, helping people to not get ripped off and buy a hoopty, So
that's right.
I think it's just crazy to see like past 20 years, just listening to the whole progression and story. I mean, I'm just inspired. So that's incredible, man.
That's good, man. I appreciate that. What's one of the things I try to do, man, is really just try to help people, because along the way, man, if you help enough people, you're going to be compensated and helped well. Sometimes the compensation doesn't come in money. Mm-hmm. Sometimes the compensation comes in just knowing a job well done and somebody was able to glean something from what you explained to them. One of the other things I do is I help small businesses in my day job, because believe it or not, I have a day job. So in my day job, I work as a contract person, helping. I manage contracts on behalf of the federal government. And so with the federal government, there's billions of dollars out there dedicated to small businesses. And so I help small businesses learn how to do business with the federal government, kind of helping them, pushing them along the way, understanding some of the language, the nomenclature, and some of the language that comes with it, and some of the processes. That's a part of what I do. It's not really featured on my Smart Money Bro webpage, but I do have a couple of courses out there on Teachable that you can find under Smart Money Bro. But I just enjoy helping people because I believe that all this information and knowledge is not going to do much good just staying in my brain, right? So I want to get it out there and help people and kind of put people in the right direction to be successful, because a lot of times, man, the best compensation is just knowing that you were able to help somebody get where they want to get.
For sure. And something else we spoke about prior to the interview, you mentioned that you had an eBay business, and it helped push your daughter, I believe, through college. So can you tell us more about that? I mean, I think that's, in this age where people are piled with student loan debt in the six figures, and, I'm sure you've seen that evolve. It's like crazy throughout your lifetime. But I think that's an amazing way to support your child, using your business to support your child and take some of the burden off. So can you tell us more about that?
Sure. When my daughter wanted to go to college, and I have 3 children. Okay, so I have an older son, I have 2 daughters. When my middle daughter wanted to go to college, we knew we didn't have anything saved up for her specifically to go to college. So at an early age, I mean, middle school, high school, we said, look, it's either going to be community college first, or it's going to be you get scholarships, one way or the other, if you want to go to a school. And let's go to an in-state school. Okay, one of the things I'm big about is making smart decisions with money. And so one of the smart decisions you can make with money is, in terms of college, is go to a school you can afford. Okay, so don't try to go to Harvard and Yale and all that, Northwestern and all that stuff. Go somewhere where you can afford to go. If that's a community college, great. I'm cool with community. I went to community college, and guess what? I've never had anybody come to me and say, hey man, where'd you get your first 60 hours at? They don't care, right? You just graduate you get your first 60 hours at a community college for $2,500 instead of at a big school for $40,000. It's just a smart money decision. It's what it is. And so my daughter said, I want to go to a in-state school, but I want to go to a 4-year school. I don't want to go to community college. So I said, cool. You get some scholarships and we'll figure out how to pay the rest. And so around 2013, I said, you know what? Let me check out this Amazon thing. So I started selling some books on Amazon. I said, let's sell some books for her, man. That'd be enough to help supplement the extra money she needed. And so it wasn't doing much. So then I went to the eBay route, all within a month or 2 of each other. I said, let me jump on eBay. I started watching some lady on YouTube selling eBay. I said, man, that's pretty smooth. I think I can do that. Let me set up my eBay account through PayPal and let me go ahead and see what I got around the house to sell. Sold a couple things, went cool. I said, okay, that's cool. Let me go to some garage sales and let me go to some estate sales, all within a few months of each other. So lo and behold, man, I was going out buying anything, just bringing it home, buying it for $5, $10, selling it for $30, $40. And then I went to Salvation Army around the corner and I bought this comb, the old Afro pick comb, had a fancy emblem on there with the fist. And I said, I bought it for like $3. I sold it for like $40. I said, okay, this is cool. Because if I just do that 100 times and I make that profit. And so lo and behold, I started doing it, but about 4 or 5 months into it, it was cool. It was making me a little bit of money, a couple $100. 4 or 5 months into it, I bought a pair of shoes. And the shoes was like $5 from a Goodwill or something, right? Shoes turned around and sold for like $45, $50. And I said, okay, this is cool. Shoes is pretty cool. So then I said, okay, what does it take to ship shoes very economically and cheap? And so lo and behold, I knew shoes because back in 2000, 2001, for about a year, I was a shoe salesman at Dillard's. So I told you I worked Jiffy Lube when I was back in 1990, and then back in 2000. So I always had a side gig when I was a teacher, right? So I used to work as a sales guy at Dillard's selling shoes. So I knew shoes. So I said, and everything I read about or looked on YouTube about eBay said, find a niche, find something that you know. So at first I was just selling anything. I pulled off of Amazon because Amazon was really focused on new products. You got to sell new stuff, and the profit margin really wasn't there, right? So I got focused on eBay, and like I said, 4 or 5 months into eBay, I found some shoes. And next thing you know, I had like 20 pairs of shoes that I had bought from Goodwill and estate sales or whatever. And I just got knee deep into shoes. And so and from that point on, the extra money from the shoes is what helped supplement. Now I got to give her credit because she had 2 or 3 jobs in college. And she went 4 years, and we was able to pay cash for her 4 years from her jobs. One of her jobs was an RA, where she was on the floor, and that helped pay for her room and board. So the thing, here's the takeaway. When it comes to going to college and not having no debt, you gotta strategize that thing, right? You gotta have scholarships. You gotta look for opportunities for employment on campus that will pay you, and then you gotta have maybe an outside job. And if you have parents like us, I was lucky enough to say, okay, let me have a second gig with eBay to pay $700-800 a month towards her schooling. and we got her out of college debt free with no loans in 2017. She graduated as a nurse, and she's an RN now. So it was a blessing, man. But I still do eBay. If you look behind me, you see I got buckets, and in those buckets there's shoes.
Yeah.
And so I still keep an inventory of about 130 or 120 pairs of shoes online at all times. But I just know shoes. I know the game real good in terms of shoes. Now, I don't do a lot of athletic sneakers. I prefer to do for men. I prefer to do dress shoes, the Allen Edmonds, the Alden, the real sharp, some Cole Haans and things like that, some Prada. So I know, but I also have a lot of women's shoes as well. I do a lot of women's shoes. So it's just been a long journey, man. On my blogs, I talk about how to do an eBay business, how to start an eBay business. What's some of the things you should look for when you start sourcing and when you start shipping? What's the most economical way to actually ship something in terms of eBay? So that's another game I've done over the last 6-7 years, man, and it's paid off. It's paid my daughter through school, and it provides me still with a little bit of extra income, man. So here's my thing, man. There's so many ways to make money, right?
Yep.
There's so many ways, whether it's real estate, whether it's eBay, whatever it is. The thing is, you got to have confidence, and you got to be willing to learn and put in the work, because nothing's easy, man. That eBay can be time intensive. At one point, I had close to 400 separate items on eBay.
Wow.
To this date, I've probably sold over $105,000 in eBay over the course of 5 or 6 years, about 6 or 7 years, about 105,000 or more. And I don't even do it very much. In the last 2 years, since she got out of college, I hardly do eBay. But I have maybe 3,600 different transactions. I have a 100% positive customer feedback on eBay.
Wow.
Which is huge. When you shipped 3,600 items and you have 100% positive customer feedback, that's great. It's all about taking care of the customer. So if anybody wants to learn eBay, they go to my site on Smart Money Bro, and I could one-on-one consult with them on how to become a dynamic eBay seller. And you can make a lot of money doing that. So that's part of the type of things I try to offer to people, man. I'm just trying to help people out and show them. But eBay has been good to me, man. Nothing wrong with it at all.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Man, I'm inspired. I think it's just great. It's been great throughout this interview just to hear about, your journey, and, it just compound effort, and it's produced a great result. That's helped your family, and it's helped you expand your finances, your businesses into multiple verticals. So I think it's awesome. And I guess to kind of wrap up, where you have a lot of great products, you have services. Could you just give us like an overview of those again, and where people can find you?
Sure. One of the things we didn't talk about, and is a whole nother deal, was my voiceover. So I do voiceovers as well. That's kind of a side gig. I kind of freelance some voiceover work. That started at my church, and so now I do it, and I get paid a little bit for it as well. You can catch my voice on YouTube, NBA Wow TV. If you go to NBA Wow, like NBA WOW TV, all one word, that's my voice. So I do some things. I do some freelance voice work. A good place to catch a lot of what I do, again, is www.smartmoneybro.com. And you can see pretty much most of what I do right there on that website. So, yeah, man, I appreciate it, man. Like I said, I'm just looking to help people. And I've made a lot of smart decisions with money over the years. And I made a lot of dumb decisions with money too. And sometimes you can learn from the bad, and you can learn from the good, and go from there. So yeah, man, that's primarily. You can also find me. Obviously, I'm on Pinterest at Smart Money Bro. I'm on Facebook at Smart Money Bro. I'm on Twitter, and my Twitter is at Smart Money Bro 1, at Smart Money Bro 1. And so again, the website is the main place where most of the action happens, man. But most places, whenever you see Smart Money Bro, that's me, Eric Bowie. So like I say, I'm just here to help, man. I'm glad I could be a part of your production today, man. I'm glad you brought me on. I appreciate it, man. And if it's real estate, hey, we can talk real estate all day long because that's another fun area that I like to dabble in.
Sure, for sure. Is there anything else you want to leave with the listeners? You've been dropping gems the whole time. But anything else you got left?
The main thing is just figure out what your purpose is. If you figure out what your purpose is and you work in your purpose, um, everybody was born with a purpose, man. Everybody has something they were born with to offer the world, the people of the world, whatever that may be, man. Find your purpose and perfect that purpose. Uh, Whatever that skill may be, maybe it's a skill that you have. Maybe it could be anything. Don't have to be anything fancy. It could be talking to people. It could be making shirts. It could be whatever it may be. Whatever your skill and your purpose is on this planet, man, you got to find that gift and you got to perfect that gift and you got to give it away. You might have to give it away free until you can be compensated for it. But just stay persistent, stay focused, take your time, and work as hard as you can because you can't be hard work no matter what you do. So that's the thing I want to leave you guys with, man. And I just appreciate you having me on, man. Uh, Many blessings to you, and I hope things continue to go well for you as well.
I appreciate it. I appreciate it. And everyone, thank you so much for listening to another episode of the Black Real Estate Dialogue podcast. I look forward to hearing from you all soon.